What's up, foodie fam? Welcome to my podcast. What the fuck? AKA, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? This is a foodie podcast. It's all about finding random shit in your house that you can pick up from anywhere or already had or something like that, and then figuring out what the fuck to do with it. I decided to make this podcast specifically because my style of cooking is all about that. Basically, finding random ingredients, whether in my house or my friend's house, and literally just coming up with a meal, improvising, substitutions, things like that. I find it to be super creative, super fun, and it gives a new flavor to recipes. Most of the time, all of us have basically, at one point or another, made some substitution. I can count on one hand or maybe two hands. Specifically, a friend has texted me to figure out how to change something, or maybe swapping out an ingredient or making something a little bit better that's tasting a little bit bland. And that same shit is basically the same shit I'm going to tell you, basically, in this podcast. It's going to be a situation where I want it to be a conversation. It'll not just be me. Sometimes I'll have guests. Occasionally I'll have friends or other chefs or other foodie people, or even just random questions from either you guys who basically listen to the podcast. And if you are listening, thank you. But for the most part, this is an ongoing conversation just about food and figuring out how to make it delicious as possible, while not breaking the bank, while not spending a shit ton of money or having to follow ridiculous recipes. I mean, and shout out to all the amazing chefs in the world. I mean, 'cause I do love food and I love chefs and I love those particular styles and things like that. But that's not what this is about. This is about trying to basically create your own way of cooking with the basic things that you probably already have in the house. And yeah, going from there, making that shit gourmet. At the end of this, which who knows when that'll be, hopefully you'll walk away with learning new tips, learning new spices, new ways to do things, and be able to maybe cook a gourmet meal for Bae, or, something a little bit more simple for yourself or your friends or whatever it is. Either way, hope you enjoy it. Let's talk a little bit more about the podcast, what you can expect, basically. So basically every week, just like any other podcast, I'm going to be coming at your ass with a bunch of different shit that you can, make or do and things like that. But the structure of this is going to be maybe a little bit weird. We may play around with it. So, it may change over time, but do let me know how you feel, comments, emails, whatever. But every week, we're going to be talking about a certain topic, right? So we're going to dive into some foodie shit, whether it's foodie news, or maybe something, I don't know, like maybe something that I just found, or a book, or something like that, or a specific recipe. But we will talk about certain topics. This week, it is just going to be about the intro. Since it's the first episode, I didn't know how to add in like fucking noise, so I just did it myself. But we're going to be talking about just me, my foodie journey, and why we're here, like why I'm here, why you're here, or at least why I think you're here. And then we'll talk about some obsessions of the week. Like, I'm always obsessed with food. If you're listening, I'm assuming you are too. So we'll talk about that week over week, just as that changes. And feel free to send suggestions. Then after that, a featured item. That's going to be that what the fuck item, that W.T.F, that one that's like, like random obscure thing, or maybe even something super popular that everyone has. We're going to talk about that. One of those things every week. And then we might, maybe not. We'll see how I feel about this shit. Maybe we'll start talking about like a recipe of the day. And I always make right recipes. I try new things. I cook literally probably 3 square meals a day. And I'm always trying something new, especially because when you cook that often, it gets boring as fuck. So what we want to do is spice it up with some new recipes. But overall, that's the structure. That's what you can expect. And I should mention, we're going to be weekly on Thursdays. Season 1 is going to run through the end of the year. So I'm going to be hitting you with content just in time for the holidays. And I'll try to make some shit like, tailored toward that for you guys and make sure that you're enjoying it. But again, always at any point in time, fucking let me know. All right, let's dive into it. My cooking journey. think everyone has a cooking journey, but I'll just talk about my experience, and hopefully it's unique enough for you feel like it's an interesting story. Because for me, it's just life. But I want to make sure that I'm letting you guys know my journey so you understand my passion and why we're here. All right, so I think like most people who enjoy cooking, or just in general, people who cook for hobbies or passion, or for professionally. I've been cooking like pretty much all of my life, man. As far as I can remember, I've always loved food and certain types of food, which we'll dive into. But for the majority of my life, I can remember at least making one dish. A little background story. I'm the oldest or eldest of a bunch of siblings. I lost count actually. But I'm the eldest of siblings. I was raised with my three sisters and my mom and my stepdad and a different bunch of parents in and out. So my dad was around, but whatever. Either way, I think I picked up the cooking from my mom specifically. Love her fucking food. And not to make it dark, but I think that the moment that she's no longer here, God made hopefully it's fucking like a long time from now. Um, I think the thing that I'm gonna miss the most is her food, just like the way it made me feel. And as much as I love to perfect my version of cooking, I think we all can kind of feel like our moms always kind of threw down, and it's the same thing about my mom too. But back to the story, I was raised with my three siblings, and so at some point, my mom had to go to work more often and things like that. And so, as an older brother, I had to do a lot of kind of like managing. I want to say them and managing those little fuckers also included basically cooking here and there. And as a kid, you don't know how to cook other shit other than hot dogs or maybe heat up some cinnamon rolls or something like that. Shout out to cinnamon rolls. One day I'll tell you guys about a story about me and my sister eating a cinnamon roll out of a garbage. Yeah, we did that shit. But anywho, yeah, no, I've been cooking since I want to say like I can think about like maybe 13, and it just I don't know, it was convenient, it was easy. I could always make something I wanted, and I'm honestly an impatient person, so it was more satisfying to make it quick, make food that I enjoyed as opposed to having to go to a store. Although I do love restaurant food and especially a good bodega or a pop up or something like that, but um, at that age, I want to say around 13, was around the time that I realized, yeah, I really do like doing this. And to tell you how it all started off, it was like eggs, basic ass eggs, like just learning to make an egg. And my uncle taught me that. Uncle Jermaine, shout out to Uncle Jermaine. I know he's probably not gonna listen to this shit, but I remember being very young and he just taught me how to just like cook a fucking egg, and that was like the first thing that I really remember enjoying cooking. And then like for maybe 2 weeks, I was obsessed with that shit because the first time that I cooked it, and literally oversalted that motherfucker. Like it was nothing but salt. You can feel it in your mouth, your tongue just drying up because of all the goddamn salt that's on this egg. But I ate that shit, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna keep trying to do this. I'm gonna keep trying to do it, try to perfect it. Making scrambled eggs, and so I did it again for like 2 weeks, and it was kind of ridiculous of how many eggs I ate. But in hindsight, it was good protein. It was like amazing for a young growing boy. But that was the first thing I made, and it branched out from there. But that's enough about what I made. Let's talk about what led me to my cooking journey and where I started from there and kind of went on. Probably around maybe 15 or 16 or something like that. I just started to cook more. And I come from a Chicago Midwestern family, so a lot of our food was kind of heavy or rich, and which I love. I think there's no better food in Chicago, maybe a couple other places. But I started to branch out into different experiences of my own, like trying out different things with vegetables and food and stuff. And today, I think that the way that I cook and what I cook now is far from like that 16, 17-year-old who was started to be more self-sufficient and cook his own meals to the 35-year-old who now fucking like throws down. I throw down, God damn it. But basically it was there. It was around that 16, 17, being a little bit more self-sufficient, where I started to get to a place of like, okay, I'm going to cook my meals when I want them as opposed to waiting for dinner, or waiting for lunch or things like that. And around that time I also had like a job, a part-time job. So, I had a different schedule than the rest of my family. So it was only made sense for me to actually get into cooking more. And then I want to say that kind of like branched out into a little bit more like cooking for friends as I got close to around 20. Because around that age, I moved into my own place with my best friend at the time. And so, two young 20-year-olds, their own apartment, we're trying to be sufficient, especially because groceries are fucking expensive. They've always been expensive. And I'm not talking about like the Whole Foods ass groceries. I'm talking about like, standard shop and save, food town, grocery outlet, bargain market, the cheap shit, save a lot. That shit was expensive, especially when you're like a 20-year-old trying to make it. So I was trying to be as efficient as possible. It made sense for me to go and buy in bulk and then cook the meals throughout the week. We were both young working adults. So I was like, here's our lunch, here's our dinner, making that shit work. And that really kind of gave me a little bit more of a sense of purpose in a way, which I think all of us want. It's like, to feel warm and fuzzy when we're doing something that feels like we're contributing and shit. So that's where that kind of feeling developed, right around that early 20s age, specifically because, for the most part, yeah, I felt like I was contributing to the house. I felt like I was making my roommate happy. I was happy, and then we were eating. We weren't hungry. So that was that part. It kind of advanced from there, really. Into about 25, I want to say. I had a couple of different roommates and whatnot. And so I was the primary cook in the house. We all contributed to groceries, but, I just made dinner every night, just trying out new recipes. And that's when it was kind of like I started to really fall in love, I want to say. Like I was truly passionate about cooking, specifically because one of the things that ended up happening was I ended up starting to work at a culinary school. Now, it's not exactly how you think. I actually was working in the accounting department. So yeah, I used to do that shit. Don't recommend it. But I used to work in the accounting department at culinary school, but they allowed us to take classes. Shout out to the Chopping Block, Chicago. I think it's still around. It's basically sign up, you go take some classes. It's kind of like a hoity-toity school, but you learn a lot, just from knife skills to like I want to say seasoning to cooking times and proper temperatures and proper way to cook foods. And so I really, really, truly enjoyed it there. I learned a lot and I relayed that into my personal life. Again, cooking dinners for my friends, now at home, throughout the week for my roommates and stuff like that. And it really just kind of like, it was a consistent learning new things. And I tried some shit out. Some shit didn't work. Some did. I have some favorites and specialties. I think actually around that time is when I developed one of my fan favorites, which is Cajun fettuccine Alfredo, chicken fettuccine Alfredo. There'll be a recipe on my site for that soon. And then, yeah, just basically just evolving my cooking style and different recipes and trying out new things. And yeah, it was just like it was a fun time to explore cooking. So much so that I do recall that my friends gave me a nickname, and that nickname was Gussie, because they said I was cooking like a Southern big woman who just knew her way around the kitchen. And I used to make brunches and shit. Gussie used to make brunches and shit, and we just like get fucking high as shit, drink some mimosas, get lit, and then chow down throughout the entire fucking day. It was amazing. It was a fun time, especially when you're young and like navigating like your way of joining the culinary world. But that's enough about my fun experience with my roommates. Continuing on the journey, I ended up moving to Seattle. One of my best decisions ever. And that really propelled me more into I want to say a professional limelight. So I want to say about 2014, I moved to Seattle, found a job, and actually started working in marketing. So yeah, accounting to marketing, still in marketing, love that shit. But I ended up getting a job, and then I was kind of bored at one point. I was a little bit lonely and tired, and I was with someone at the time, but then we broke up. And so now it's just me cooking around for myself in a city that I don't fucking know. So I had to figure out something. So eventually, I ended up getting my bartender's license, and certification and food handler's permits and everything like that, insurance and whatnot, to make sure that I could work in the culinary industry. And I ended up joining a friend's catering company called The Groove Catering. I think they're based out of Atlanta now, but they do have locations still in Seattle, Washington. Shout out to Seattle, shout out to The Groove. And Essentially just learn the ropes, like how to make drinks, how to pour certain things. I mean, I was already drinking. I knew how to drink, but made how to make professional drinks, how to service people. And it was a shit ton of fun. I got to do like events, like a Snoop Dogg concert where I made bank that fucking time. And then like other events where like the wives of the Seattle Seahawks, they had a fashion show. So it was a lot. It was great for networking. And that with the bartending side, and then that kind of parlayed into like helping with the servicing, with the food for a lot of different events. Through them, I'm super grateful because I did learn a lot about just catering and that side of it. Specifically because there's a certain level of service that you provide to multiple people. So instead of just cooking for like my friends and everybody's like, oh, cool. It was more of like, on point all the time, making sure your food is good, making sure nobody's overserved or underfed. And it was a really learning experience for me. And I truly enjoy learning it. And at any point in time, if they ever need my help, I'll actually go back to help serve or cook or bartend, whatever they need. I always love the group. So I did the catering for a while. I want to say the entire time that I was in Seattle for the most part with the group. But then a friend of mine, Vibes by B, shout out to Vibes by B, basically was throwing events and it was different parties and things like that. And one day I approached him and said, hey, you should do a brunch pop up, like a trap hip hop brunch vibe or whatever. And I stole that idea kind of from a spot here in New York where they do like bomb ass fucking parties. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's day parties. It's always a line and it's ratchet and it's live and I love it. And I visited New York to visit one of my best friends at the time and took it back and was like, hey, you should do this. And I'd be down for like, cooking. He was a little against it at first and it took a couple months, but eventually came around to the idea. And in a nutshell, I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's plan it out. He had found a space and like this little coffee bar, basically for us to just get out there and test it out. And so we did it. It was so much fucking fun. So at this point in time, now it was less of about I was working for a catering company, and now this was all mine. Well, technically it was ours, but the food was all mine. I came up with the menu. I did the shopping. I did the prep cook. I did all the, basically getting it all laid out. And then the day of, I did all the cooking, the continuous cooking, and then also participated in the party as well. And, make sure everybody's good. But it was such a great feeling. I really, truly enjoyed being able to do this, being able to have people see so many people like kind of enjoy my food and give good feedback, whether it was too salty or too sweet, whatever it was. I really enjoy that. And so we started doing that more often. We went from about 40 people in the beginning because the space was small. And I think the max people we catered to were maybe like a couple hundred. And that was huge for me. Like it was huge because it was like summer parties and there's a lot of people, excuse me, like choking on the mic. Said it was huge. It was a big, we went from 40 to 100 people, maybe a couple hundred, I want to say. And it was just a great experience. We had fun. It was lit. The drinks were flowing. Everybody was dancing, specifically because we wanted this brunch to be just an environment for people of color. Now, everybody was welcome, but you got to know that in Seattle, it's a lack of people of color. Over the years, up until now, I want to say about 2018 when I left, or sorry, it's 2020 now, but 2018 when I left, there was an increase. There was a lot more people working for Amazon, like corporations like Amazon and Facebook and Microsoft and stuff like that. So you did have a wealthy kind of population who was looking for something like that. And so we just pulled them into our brunches and they became our friends and our customers. And it was a fucking great experience. I loved it 100%. So after I want to say a couple years of doing that, getting a lot of experience under my belt with the catering portion and cooking and things like that, I started to play around with this idea of like doing pop-ups. So we haven't fully fleshed that out yet, but I did transition to New York because I knew that one, the city was vibrant. There was a lot more people. There was a lot more food. And I just wanted to be closer to home again, which was Chicago. And really kind of dive into the idea of like, how do I make this part-time passion a full-time reality? And so I cook every day, like I mentioned before, and I'm going to continue cooking every day. And next up, aside from this podcast and my website and things like that, I'm actually going to start doing pop-ups. Now, we all know we're in the time of Rona. I don't know when the fuck that is going to be specifically because I don't know when Rona is going to end. But I am looking forward to that. And when I do, I'm going to make sure that I invite everybody out because that's the next step of my journey, I think. So we went from everything from cooking as a kid for just my siblings to, cooking for roommates and friends to catering, to now, I guess I do kind of like want to do private events and private chef and stuff like that. Because I love cooking for people. And while I did truly enjoy doing the events at large scale, that is a whole lot of fucking work. That takes a good weekend, a good Saturday. So the pop-ups every so often, but I'm definitely going to probably start opening myself up to private events and things like that and whatnot. And then also, you can also expect some of my recipes on my sites and developing a book or two, maybe coming very, very soon, just for you guys to get an idea of who I am, what the brand of what the fuck is, and basically, everything about my experience. All right, that was a mouthful. Let's move on. So we talked about my cooking journey. Next up, let's talk about my obsession. So aside from just being obsessed with food in general and cooking, I am obsessed with wings this week. Now, take your stereotypical ass comments on. Yes, I'm a black person who loves fucking fried chicken, especially wings. However, there are a variety of types of wings, and I'm just obsessed with all of them. My favorite version is to cook basically a good thick battery crust. You marinate it in some buttermilk. Throw in all your seasonings. I prefer to start with a little salt, pepper, garlic, maybe a little Cajun spice, things like that. Marinate it, fry it up, and then I have a couple different sauce blends that I will share with you guys later. But one is a honey sriracha kind of maple syrup blend, which is fucking bomb. And I think that's my favorite right now. I think that's definitely the one that what I love the most this week, specifically because of that sauce. But yeah, that sauce is just amazing. There are a couple different places I do love wings from. I just want to dive into the passion of the wings. Just close your eyes and visualize fucking wings. Some good, fried, hard, crispy motherfucking wings. So, like I said before, I'm from Chicago, so I love a good fried battery kind of deal. I try not to eat it often because I do eat healthy the majority of the time. But I want to say like maybe 6 days a week. But that 7th day of fucking bomb ass 7th day, I'm absolutely down for some fried chicken, some greens, some mac and cheese, or even just chicken and fries. I'm good either way. But like I said, from Chicago, there's a couple places. There's a battle that all Chicagoans know. I don't know if it's still brewing, but there's a battle between Harold's Fried Chicken on the south side, Uncle Remus on the west side. Now, I'm a south side kind of motherfucker, so I don't fuck with Uncle Remus. I done had it. It's alright. It ain't no fucking Harold's, but I'll let that debate keep going. You also got JJ Fish. Love that too. These are like localized little places and whatnot. Then here in New York, you fucking got any bodega, like they have some good tenders or some good wings here and there and whatnot. I don't too much care about the way bodegas kind of like marinate their wings and whatnot, but I understand like production, you got to keep that shit ready. And then back in even Seattle, Ezell's famous fried chicken. There's a whole story about that. Look it up. They stole some recipe, split off. It was a whole ordeal, but apparently that's Oprah's favorite chicken. So Ezell's is pretty decent. And then, like, I want to even move to the big box chains, right? So, Buffalo Wild Wings versus, like, Wingstop. I don't care what no one says. Wingstop is trash. I do not like Wingstop. I don't understand. They be these pasty-ass, dry-ass wings. And I've had it in Manhattan. I've had it in Brooklyn. It's these pasty-ass, dry-ass wings. I don't understand why anybody likes fucking Wingstop. But, I mean, if that's your thing, I guess. Buffalo Wild Wings, though, something about the seasonings, the spices, and whatnot. I forgot if they do the dirty style. I think they do a dirty style where you can mix a couple of blends of seasoning, which I've tried it back in Seattle at one of the Buffalo Wild Wings. But I think, yeah, that's probably my favorite major chain, specifically because they're everywhere. They fucking have everything. You can get it spicy or mild or hot or whatever, and it's all delicious as fuck. And it's inspired me to actually create a bunch of shit of my own, specifically because they are expensive, overpriced for whatever reason. I mean, you can get a cute little lunch sampler or whatever, get you a beer and some shit, but they're overpriced. It's truly a fucking like chain restaurant that's trying to make money. And speaking of price, what happened to their 20-cent wings? Does anybody remember that? I really recall like Tuesdays they would have 20-cent wings and they would draw people in. And then I think it went to like 50 cents. Then I think it went to like $1.50 or some shit like that. I mean, I get it. The cost of inflation and the prices of food rising, the economy changes everything. Understand that. But is it me or do you just get more with like 50-cent wings? I mean, stop at 75 cents at least. Either way. But shout out to Buffalo Wild Wings. It's one of my favorite places. All right. Last but not least, we're going to talk about our What the Fuck featured item. I don't know how to do the sound effect, so I just make it up. But our What the Fuck item of this week is seasoning, and it's a special seasoning, not just any seasoning. It is Sazon. S-A-Z-O with a little Mexican or Spanish apostrophe thing above it in tropical. The reason I'm bringing this up is because my life has been void of some good adobo. Specifically because just like the rest of you, if you buy adobo, you usually get Goya. That's the staple. It's in every supermarket, but I don't know about you guys, and I don't know what your thoughts on political views are, which we're not gonna dive into. But I know that once that motherfucking president of Goya came out supporting that orange bastard in his White House, that was it. I threw my adobo out. I literally threw it out. You can ask anybody who knew me. I just took it out, threw it out. And it was so heartbreaking because I used to just put that shit on anything. Just like a chicken tendy, put that bitch in the microwave and, throw it on a piece of bread, a little seasoning, boom, a quick snack. I love a hearty snack, by the way. Not so much into the sweet stuff. I'm definitely a hearty snack person. So Goya was my go-to for a lot of like just being able to just come up with something quick. But I had to find an alternate rather. I had to move around and see some other things. So I tried a couple other things, like, just mixing a little blend that I normally would put on other things, and trying all the spices, because I have a spice army. Like, I legit have 2 shelves full of everything you could possibly need that I can find at this grocery store for a couple bucks. But I was still missing something. I was missing a little flavor, a little Spanish variety, I guess you can say. So I kept searching until I found this bad boy. So Sazon makes a couple different versions or blends. Some are for soups and some are for a little bit more along the lines of, like, I guess, salads and whatever different things. And then the one that I got is for meat, poultry, and fish. It's specifically a heartier blend with a lot of flavor. So no MSG added, but a little salt. It really changes the game. It gives you a whole source for anything you want to just season. Not like little snacks like I mentioned, but if I'm making a paella or if I'm making tacos or if I'm making anything that has a Spanish flavoring profile, then this is something I can always add, or you can always add, to kind of like bring a little bit more flavor without trying to blend a bunch of herbs like the cumins and the oreganos and the paprikas, things like that. So one-stop shop, I definitely recommend having any sort of kind of like blended flavors just in case, especially for the guys out there, guys and girls, anyone out there who are trying to cook and maybe don't know how or are concerned about over seasoning things. This is definitely the way to go. Go ahead and get you a full blended kind of spice thing. I again, fuck Goya, Sazon, I think it's Badia, Badia. It's Badia, little red little box around that with a little basil leaves on top or something. But either way, Sazon Tropical, that's the way to go. So that is our What the Fuck featured item for this week. All right, guys, time to wrap it up. We are at time for this episode. thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. I know this is a new experience. It's a new experience for me. So I'm going to be all over the place while I try to figure this out. And I hope you want to stay along for the ride. But definitely come back next week and check us out. Thanks, shout out, and thanks to the HausHill Network, which is where our podcast is featured, obviously, if you're listening. And shout out to everybody who just loves food. I really appreciate it and definitely want to hear from you guys. So you can reach me at ginroecooks@gmail.com. That's GinRoeCooks@gmail.com. My website is ginroecooks.com. So GINROE cooks.com, and sign up for the newsletter. Like, I'm sending out recipes, fucking like giving you new foodie news and shit like that, and all types of stuff. You can check out the Instagram at Gin Roe Cooks also, and then same thing on Facebook. Or actually, it's Gin Roe Cook on Facebook. Yeah. So thanks again. See you next week, fools.
It's only entertainment.